Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I'm just going to leave it a few minutes for extra people to join us today. But just while we're waiting for people to join, just give us there's a chat box in the bottom right hand corner. So if you can hear me okay, it would be great for you to put some comments in there just to confirm that you can hear me absolutely fine. Feel free to ask any questions using the chat box in the bottom right hand corner. There is the possibility, the opportunity to put in emoticons such as smiley faces or thumbs up. So feel free to provide feedback or support by using that. There's also a microphone there as well for you to do recorded voice chat. Please do not use that, because if you have any questions, I won't be playing back any audio files to answer questions today. So if we just keep it to text-based or emoticons, that would be fantastic. The session today is 45 minutes. Hopefully there'll be a good 5 minutes at the end to address any questions that you might have. So it'll be about 40 minutes to go through the slides. It looks like everyone can hear me okay, which is fantastic. Just also pop in the chat box as well. I'd like to know, before I go through this session today, what are you here for in terms of goals? Are you here for business goals? Is it more for personal goals such as health or losing weight or something like that? Or is it more to do with career goals and progressing through your career? So it'd be good to get some feedback on those. And we'll just leave it a few more seconds before we get started. Brilliant. Hi, Jean. Hi, Alessandra. Good to see you. And Sally. What we'll do is we'll get started. So welcome to today's session on how to set goals that you want to achieve and that you can get results from. I'll give a more detailed introduction to myself shortly. But I just want to point out that today we'll be going through why goal setting and why people quite often fail to achieve the success that they would like to achieve. And then I'll go through 6 key elements to success that you can use in your goal setting to help you get better results. As I said, quick introduction, I'm Darren Hignett, and I provide performance coaching and marketing mentoring to business owners and to marketers and salespeople. And I've got various books on Amazon and on Audible. And I'm also the author and the course creator of a book and a course called Setting Goals That Get Results, which is what you can see in the bottom right-hand corner. And pretty much most of the content that I cover today is based on what I've included in that course and in that book, and also in terms of what I do on a day-to-day basis when I'm coaching my clients. And I take a slightly different approach to the traditional goal-setting process that you may be familiar with in 3 ways. First of all, I focus on how to make sure you decide on the right goals for you, how you decide on what's top priority, not just in terms of goals, but in terms of the actions that you take. And I don't use the traditional 12-month goal setting period. I use a 10-week goal setting period, which I will go through shortly, and I'll explain why. And then the third part where I am different is that it's great to set goals. It's fantastic to write something down, but it's of no use if you don't carry it through and take the right actions to keep you focused and to keep you working on them. So I've got some great tools and techniques that I use with my clients to help them stay focused throughout the 10-week goal setting period. So why do we fail? Let's quickly go through that. And there's a number of reasons why we don't succeed with our goal setting. Sometimes it's a lack of clarity as to what we're supposed to be working on or what we want to work on. We don't have the focus. Maybe we've got the wrong priorities. And sometimes we don't have the perseverance to see it right through. We set a goal over, say, 12 months, but 2 or 3 months in, or even 2 or 3 weeks in, we just lose the willpower. We get distracted with other things going on, and we don't manage to see it through to the end. And sometimes we want to achieve so much that we just don't know where to start. We have too much to do. So we spread ourselves thinly in terms of trying to work on too many things. And in many cases, I see people who procrastinate and cannot decide where to start. And so effectively, they don't get started. They don't work on the goals because there's an overwhelm of what do I do, or what should I work on? And when we do set goals, a big issue that we quite often don't realise is that I see people working on goals that they're not really passionate about. Maybe their boss told them they've got to do it, or they feel like it makes sense as a goal, but it's not something that they really enjoy, or something that they're passionate about making work for them. So having that stronger desire does make a difference. And we'll come back to that later. And one of the things I won't talk about too much directly today is the fear of failure. Sometimes we don't get started because we look at it and say, well, why do this if there's a very good chance that I might fail at this target? And so that fear of failure, whether we admit it or not, whether it's subconsciously, it stops us from even getting started with working on our goals. And you may be familiar with these different things going through your mind. You maybe have asked yourself these questions in the past. The goals I set, they needed more clarity. I got distracted too easily with work issues or customer deliverables or other things that came up. I just didn't feel motivated. Just didn't manage to stay focused. There's too much to do. I really didn't know where to start, and there was no urgency with my goals because they're over a 12-month period. And the last one, which you probably didn't ask yourself this, but is very much true, is that if any of the goals were in line with what I really truly want in life. So you may have come across one or many of those ones yourself. And again, feel free to comment in the box if any of those resonate with you. And if you're thinking, well, is it just me that can't work on goals and stay focused? You're not alone. I'll show you some evidence later on that a lot of people do struggle to stay focused. And I myself, over the years, I've worked on the process, I've worked on the habits, I've worked on the different elements to try and perfect the goal setting process and the work that I do. And that's not quite me, because I'm not sure how young I was when I started setting goals, probably more in my 20s. But this is just a fun way of me saying, I've gone through that process myself. And so before we go through the 6 key elements, let's just ask a few questions. I'll just answer a couple of questions. The first one is there really any evidence that we struggle to stay focused on goals? It may sound like a silly question because it may seem obvious. And the second question is there any evidence that goal setting really works? And I'm not going to go through and read through all of these bullet points here, but I just want to focus on the top one and the bottom one that I put in red. The first one, you may say that New Year's resolutions aren't really goal setting, but research shows that 92% of New Year's goals or New Year's resolutions, they don't make it past the first 15 days of a 365 or a 366 day year. Now that's quite shocking, to think that only 8% get any further than the first 15 days. And I don't know the actual figure, but I don't know how many of that 8% even make it right through to the end of the year. But I'm guessing it's not a lot. And if we skip to the last bullet point, this is a direct quote from an article based on research. And again, I've seen all sorts of different figures branded around, but the article says that when people write down their goals, they are 33% more successful in achieving them. So if you have goals, you're more likely to achieve success. But if you actually write down those goals, then the chances of success are even greater. And of course, what I haven't got here and what it doesn't say here is that writing down those goals and actually actioning them right through to the end, again, increases the chances of success even further. So what are the 6 key elements to success? Well, let's go through the first one, which is to align your goals with your personal values. I see lots of people setting goals that it's not in line with their core values or what they personally want to achieve. Now, if you're setting personal goals for fitness, for example, to run a marathon or to lose weight, then if that's what you truly want to do, then they're already aligned with you personally. But if you're setting business goals or career goals, then the more aligned your goals are with what you personally want to achieve and how you see yourself and your core values, then the more motivated, the more determined and the more committed you will feel towards achieving them. So to summarize, align the goals with what you want and desire and are passionate about. And if you can do that, it creates a greater emotional link and increases the motivation to work on those goals. And naturally, the opposite occurs. If you're not motivated, why would you want to work on those goals? And the stronger the link, the greater the chance of success. So before you start setting any goals, it's worth just taking a step back and saying, what do I want to achieve? What are my personal goals? For example, if I'm running a business, what's my retirement strategy? How do I want to retire, and how is the business going to help me to achieve those personal goals? So that's just one example. And a quick top tip for you: the more visual you can make it, the greater the link and the more motivated you will be. So you can see here an image of a dream holiday. It may be that if it's a personal goal around health and fitness, you may print out some sort of visual that you put around your house or your kitchen. If it's to do with business, you may be looking at saying, well, what's my retirement plan? Or I'd like a Ferrari or a Maserati or a dream holiday, or just to spend more time with family. And if you have a printout, a visual that you put in your office, when you go in the morning into your office and start work, you'll see that visual and you can see the connection and you can see the association with why you're going into the office and what you're going to do and how that links up to what you ultimately want to do. A slight confession, I'm not very good with printers. I'd spend forever trying to print out a good colour visual like that. So I use an app called, I think it's called the Vision Board, which allows me to enter my goals as little cards. And each card has an image with the wording for each goal. And you can swipe through the goals or swipe through the cards and see each goal and visualize what you want to achieve. And that's a great way of increasing that link between the goals and the total outcome or the end outcome on a personal front. So imagine you've looked at what you want to do personally. You've looked at your core values, and that's great. But when you set the goals, it's important that you set not just the right goals, but you set the right actions and the right tactics to achieve those goals. And I see people get towards the end of the goal setting cycle, they get to the end of the 12 months and they say, well, actually, I probably worked on the wrong things, or I did the wrong tactics or the wrong actions and I would have done it differently. You can change your goals. You can change your tactics halfway through if you feel that that's necessary. But the ultimate way to set goals, the best way to do it, is to get the goals right and get the actions right at the start. And for many of us, we set goals based on our gut feeling. We think we know what's right, or we feel like we know what's right. And that's fine. That makes perfect sense. But I found myself quite often, when I answer the question, what do I need to do in terms of actions, I end up writing things down that maybe my brain has told me what I would like to do rather than what I need to do in terms of results. My mind is effectively answering a different question to what I'm asking. And just by going through some sort of logical process of applying some sort of science or some formulas or figures or values and weightings to what I've listed down as my goals, it makes a big difference because it makes me question what I really think are the right decisions. So here's one way to prioritize. And I work very closely with a business owner who helps businesses to make the right strategic decisions in their business. And he talks a lot about critical success factors. Now, if you're not familiar with critical success factors, as the name suggests, they're factors or tactics that you determine, that you use, that are critical to you achieving the success that you want to achieve. And an example of this that he gives is that if your mission, your plan is to drive from London to Edinburgh by car or from New York to Boston, what's critical to success is having a car. It doesn't matter what car it is, whether it's a luxury car, a Ferrari or a Rolls Royce, or a clapped out car from the 1960s. So long as it gets you there, what's critical to success is having a car. The type of car or the brand of car is a nice to have. And similarly, what shoes you wear, whether it's a comfortable pair of shoes or not, that's all nice to have, but that's not critical to success. And I'll give you one last example in this scenario. You may say, well, what's critical to success is having a map to get to your destination. Well, it might help, but there are other alternatives. You can ask for directions. You might already know the way, or you might follow the signs to get you there. So having a map, again, is a nice to have, but what's critical is having the tools or the mechanisms of ways to find out how to get to a destination. Having a map is not necessarily critical. So if you have your goals and you write down 2 to 3 actions that are critical to success, if you only have 2 or 3, that's perfect. You'll work on those with your goals. But if you've got, like many people, you've got 7 or 8 or 10 or 15 elements that you consider are critical to success, then you need to narrow that down to a smaller number of a maximum of 5. And what you can do is you can write down those ones that you've come up with by applying, your gut feeling in a brainstorm. Write down those critical success factors and then add values next to each one. So 10 is top priority, 0 or 1 is low priority. You can do it any way you feel comfortable. But whatever way you do it, apply it so that you can see what's highest importance and what's lowest. And out of that, you should have 3 to 5 critical success factors that you should work on in your goal setting period. That doesn't mean you should never work on what else you have on your list. It means that for the current goal setting period, those are your top priorities and those are what you're going to work on first. If you complete one of those, you may well cross it off and move on to another one that's on your list. But it's just a way of making sure that you narrow down to focus on the right activities that will get you the best results. And my third success element, as I've mentioned earlier, is the 10-week goal setting formula. Now, I need to point out here, I'm not saying do not have long-term goals. If you are looking at retirement in 20, 30 or 40 years' time, you'll plan for what you want to achieve when you retire. And similarly, if you're running a business, you might have a 5 or a 10-year business plan. But typically what you do is you take that 5 or 10-year business plan and you break it down into a 12-month cycle. So you set your targets for 12 months. What I'm saying here is that you should set it over 10 weeks rather than 12 months. Now, why should you do that? Well, it creates more urgency. If you imagine a scenario, let's imagine you're totally committed to working on goals. You're definitely going to see it through. You're going to get past that January the 15th I mentioned earlier. Typically what happens is we get to April or May and we think, well, I'm a bit behind schedule, but that's fine. I've still got 7, 8 months to go. I'll keep going. Then you get to July and you say, well, it's the holiday period. August, I go away on holiday and I come back in September. And now there's 3 or 4 months left to focus on my goals before the end of the year. And then what happens then? You get to the festive period. If you're in the UK, then you'll be looking at things like Christmas and what you're doing with friends and family, and you get distracted. And the next thing you know is the year's gone by and you maybe did some work on goals, but it's been very difficult to stay focused throughout the entire year. If you work over a 10-week goal setting period, you have very little time. You need to focus. If you waste a week or 2 weeks, you've only got 8 or 9 weeks left to achieve those goals. So it works because it creates a sense of urgency. And instead of creating 10 or 15 goals, you set 1, 2 or 3 goals, which gives you more clarity and there's less distractions because you're only working on those 2 or 3 goals to see it through to the end. So here's an example of how it works in terms of the process and the steps. You set goals over 10 weeks. You effectively, you set your goals over 10 weeks instead of 12 months. Focus on just 1, 2 or 3 goals, and you effectively treat each week as if it's a month. Now, I know there's 12 months in a year, and I'm talking about 10 weeks, so there's a bit of a mismatch there. But if you treat each week in terms of the actions you do as if it's a month, then you will focus much better on what needs to be done. Now, I understand that sometimes you can't exactly set goals that are monthly and turn it into a week. For example, if you have an annual sales figure or a monthly sales figure, you can't achieve in 1 week the sales figures that you can achieve in 1 month. So you will need to adjust that accordingly. I have a personal target to do 10,000 steps a day, which is 300 or 310,000 steps in a month. That's not possible in a week, so I've adjusted mine so that my target is 70,000 steps in a week. So you'll need to make adjustments where necessary. But if you're looking at things like doing a marketing campaign for your business, for example, or reading a book or publishing a book, then if you look at what you would try to do in a month and you cram that into 1 week, you'll consolidate your focus and you will achieve more, because that precision, that there's more focus on making sure that you get what you want to get done. And the fourth step here is to clarify your plans and make sure you're clear on a weekly basis what you want to achieve, either at the end of the week or better still at the beginning of every week. So if you sit down on a Monday morning and you look at what you want to achieve and what your actions are for the week, then you have it clear in your head before the week starts what you want to do and what you want to achieve. Okay, so on the screen now, you can see a screenshot of a template that I use, and I'm happy to provide this free of charge to anyone that's attending today. On the left-hand side, you can see there are 3 goals, and there's a mixture of business and personal goals, and these are just examples. And underneath each goal, you can see there are sub-targets. So I've broken the goal down into smaller sub-targets to work on. And what I recommend doing is taking those sub-targets and turning them into weekly activities. So on the right-hand side in the template, you can see it says week 1 and week 2. It might not be that clear to see, but you can see that on a weekly basis, there are written actions, so that you're breaking down those goals into weekly activities and you're working through them. And that takes me nicely to element number 4, which is to break down activities and plan it weekly. My apologies, I think there's a bit of a delay in the screen. I'm not sure if you can see the 4th one. I'm not sure if it's updating on the screen or not. Let's come up. So you've set your goals. You've decided you're going to work on a 10-week period. Breaking down the activities into what I call micro tasks makes it much easier to work through those activities. If I say to you, you're going to run a marathon as a goal, or write a book, or create a marketing lead generation process for your business, then that sounds quite overwhelming. And many people don't know where to start. What's the first thing they should do? What's the second thing they should do? And so on. But by breaking down the activities into smaller chunks, it becomes, there's greater focus, and it becomes easier to be able to tick off what you're doing as you work through them. And you get a sense of motivation. So why should you do this? Well, it increases the motivation and focus. It helps create a feeling of progress as you tick off those tasks, and it eliminates that feeling of overwhelm. And it also stops a thing called hyperbolic discounting. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that term. It's a very fancy way of saying, if we get rewarded in years rather than days, then the further out that reward is for us, the more we discount it in our mind. So I've talked a lot about retiring, but if you're retiring in 20 or 30 years' time, even though it's very important to plan, we discount it in our mind because it's so far away. If, however, we get a chance to get a reward, a dopamine rush, if you like, from watching Netflix or checking our Facebook feed or our Instagram feed, we get an immediate reward, we're more likely to prioritize and do that first. So you can see the image here whereby somebody is looking and they're saying, well, should I watch my favorite Netflix program or should I work on my goals? Well, you know what? I'll work on my goals tomorrow and I will enjoy myself and watch my favorite Netflix program today. And what's happening here is goal setting, sometimes we don't get a reward from it until weeks, months, and potentially with a business plan, it could be years ahead. But by writing down micro tasks, breaking down our activities into tiny, small actions that we can tick off quickly, we get a sense of achievement. And we feel a sense of progress as we work through those goals. So I'll give you an example of how you can break this down shortly, but here are some tips. The first thing to do is to take the higher level activity and break it down into those sub-targets I showed earlier on the template. Break it down into 2 or 3 subtasks. And then underneath those subtasks, then write down 2 to 4 actions for each subtask. Now, if you need to write down 10, 15, or even 20 subtasks for that, 10, 15, or 20 actions for that subtask, then don't be afraid to do that. That's fine. The smaller you break the activity down into, then the better the chance that you'll be motivated and the easier it is to tick it off and to say the job is done, I move on to the next activity. So I've put 2 to 4 here, but it may be more than that if need be. So make sure to tick them off and move on to the next one. And Nir Eyal, who wrote the book Indistractable, if you've not read it, I recommend reading it. It's a great read. But on his website, he shows this diagram or this image of how he takes that approach to writing an article for his website. And as you can see, there are 4 subtasks: come up with an article topic, create an article outline, write the article, and then prepare it for publication. And underneath each subtask are the different tasks themselves. So we've got research top posts, ask a good question for the first one, and the second one we've got research keywords and find stories. These are very simple tasks to do. They should take no more than 20 to 30 minutes to do. It could be something that takes 5 to 10 minutes to do. But in any way, it should take no more than an hour to complete each task. And you can see that just by researching top posts and asking a question, he's already completed the first column that says come up with an article topic, and he's making progress and moving on to the next part of the process for writing an article. And you can apply this to any goal that you set, whether it's a personal goal, career goal, or a business goal. Now, up to now, we have talked about creating the right goals in line with your personal targets, planning ahead in the way of 10 weeks and then breaking it down into weeks. Now we're going to get it more into how to stay focused on a daily or a weekly basis. And creating habits is a fantastic way to help you stay focused and to not kind of give up or get distracted with other things that are going on. And when I say habits, I mean habits and routines. There's a slight difference between what a habit is and a routine, but when I refer to habits, I'm talking about both. And here's 3 great reasons for why you should use habits to help you achieve your goals. If you make working towards your goals a daily or a weekly habit, it requires much less effort. When we get in a car, we don't stop and think, turn the key, put the foot on the clutch, put the gear in place, and all these different things. It comes as second nature to us. It's automatic. We automatically know what to do. The same when we get up in the morning or go to bed and we brush our teeth. We don't need to think about what we need to do. We just do it. And the more it becomes automatic, and the more it becomes part of a habit to work on our goals, then the less the barrier that says, I really don't want to do this today, or I really don't feel like doing this. I've got other things to do and maybe I'll do that instead. So if you make working on your goals part of your habit, then it becomes second nature. And you're less likely to skip the next activity. You would just automatically do it. If it takes effort, you're more likely to say, well, I won't do it today. I'll give it a miss. I don't feel like going for that run, or I don't feel like writing that book or that blog article for my website or whatever it is. I'll go and do something else that I feel like doing. So making it part of a habit means you're less likely to skip it. And the third part here is, and this might sound strange, but daily activities or weekly activities or working on your goals, it compounds. The professional athlete or runner doesn't wake up and say, I'm going to become a marathon runner, or I'm going to win a gold medal in the Olympics. What they do is they work on it daily to get themselves fit, not just physically, but also in terms of their mindset, so that when the day comes to compete, they're ready for it. Now, if I just put this into a financial savings account type example, imagine you have £1,000 UK pounds and you're earning a wonderful 10% interest. That's £100 interest. So I have a question for you. Does that mean you're earning £100 every year in interest? Now, you might immediately think, yes, it is, but actually it isn't, because in year one, you earn £100 interest, and you now have £1,100 in your account. Now, assuming you don't put any more money in and you don't take any money out, in year two, you earn 10% on £1,100, which, if my calculations are right, you earn £110 interest, which leaves you with £1,210. So effectively, you're earning interest not just on the initial deposit, but you're earning interest on the interest. And that's how it works with habit creating. You might feel like you're not making much progress or getting much results in your goals, and then all of a sudden you'll find that that big order, the big sales order in your business comes in, or you suddenly find that you manage to run that distance in that time that you set, or whatever it is. You suddenly feel a huge amount of progress has been made overnight. And it's not really happened overnight. It's something that's been accumulative, and it's just not been shown, and it's suddenly come to light. So if you make action setting for achieving goals part of your daily routine, it compounds and it adds up. And there are several different ways that you can use habits to work for you. One of them is by using what I call habit linking. So I'll give you a very quick example. My son, who's a teenager, he showers before he goes to bed. But when I take him to the gym in the evenings, twice a week, he showers at the gym, so therefore he doesn't need to shower at home before he goes to bed. Many times he's stayed up late because he doesn't need to shower, but when he goes to bed, he goes upstairs and he turns the shower on. And I'm thinking, why are you having a shower when you literally had one 2 hours ago? What's happened here is there's a strong link between going to bed and having a shower. It's become part of the habit. So find your daily habits, find your daily routines, such as when you brush your teeth, when you sit down at your computer to start your day at work, or whatever those daily routines are that you do. Create a habit link whereby you say, okay, when I sit down at my desk, I'm going to review my goals. Or when I have a shower, or when I do this or do that, I'm going to do something that's associated with my goals. If you can link your actions and your activities to your daily habits, it will become second nature. And the second way you can do this is by bundling rewards to what you do. I have a crazy example of an engineer who found that his goal to achieve fitness wasn't working. So he rewired his running machine up to his TV so that he could only watch his favorite Netflix program when he was running. Now, I'm not sure that I could manage 2 hours of watching my favorite program on Netflix and running for 2 hours. It just wouldn't be possible for me. But the point I'm making here is that if you provide a reward of something you enjoy and link it to your working on goals, you're more likely to achieve them, and you're more likely to do those actions. It may be that you have a favorite coffee or a favorite bit of chocolate, and you can enjoy that coffee and that chocolate only when you're working on your goal activities. So you now know you will look forward to working on your goals because you're getting rewarded either during the process or at the end of doing the process. And the third and final example is micro-start. Micro-start is the idea of taking the beginning activity and making it so easy and so small and so simple to do that you can't not do it effectively. If you're going back to the brushing the teeth, if you're struggling to brush your teeth, then the activity is put toothpaste on the toothbrush. It's so small, it's so simple, it's so easy to do. But once you've done that, it becomes second nature to say, well, I've got toothpaste on my toothbrush, I should start brushing my teeth. If I put that into a fitness and running example, it may be that you say to yourself, I really don't feel like going for that run. It's cold outside, it's dark, it's wet. I'll maybe give it a miss today. But if you set a micro start to just put your trainers on, if that's your starting activity, it's not a lot to do, it's simple, there's less of a barrier. You'll now be sitting down in your home thinking, well, I've got my trainers on, what's next? If that doesn't inspire you and motivate you to go out for that run, then the next thing to do is create another micro start again, which is stand outside. So now you're standing outside with your trainers, your sneakers on, your running shoes, and you're thinking, well, I'm outside, I've got my trainers on, I might as well go out and run. So a micro start puts you in a position whereby you're saying, well, I've got started now, I might as well see it through. So it's a great way to get you started. There's a famous quote, and I can't remember the exact wording, but it's something along these lines. The hardest part to getting started is getting started. Now that might sound strange, but it's true. Quite often we don't work through our activities because we can't get started. And if your goal is to write an article, for example, or to do some website content, just writing the first sentence or the first word gets you into that flow. It gets you going. Okay, so we've done 5 of the top 6 key ways to achieve success. And the 6th and final one is to incorporate positive accountability in the process. Now, I have put the word positive in yellow here because it's not just about accountability, it's about positive accountability. It's about encouraging, having someone encourage you and motivate you to stay focused and to feel like you're making progress and making a success of what you're doing. Let me just give an example or some examples of what positive accountability is not. And you may have seen this in corporate environments, in larger organizations. Something goes wrong, we say, who's to blame for this? Why wasn't this done? Or why was it done this way? How did we get to this situation that needs to be corrected? And those things get people defensive. They start defending their reasoning, start trying to justify why they did or didn't do something. And that doesn't take us forward. It's great for finding faults, making sure that those errors don't occur again in the future. But in terms of goal setting, a better approach is to have somebody positively encourage you and say, well done, you're making progress, you've achieved this. Or maybe you didn't achieve this, but you were so close and you put in a great effort. And if you're not sure whether accountability works, here's a quote from the American Society for Training and Development. If you have a specific accountability appointment to check in on the state of your progress, you'll increase the probability of meeting your goal by 95%. Now, you might say, well, this is in America and everyone's different and maybe that doesn't apply to me. But let's imagine that 95% is lower. Even if it's 70 or 80%, what we're saying here is that by having somebody hold you accountable and to support you, you're still hugely going to increase the chances of meeting your goals. Accountability in whatever format works. And there are several different ways that you can use accountability. You can have a buddy system. So find a friend, find a work colleague, partner with them and say, look, you're setting goals, I'm setting goals. Let's share our goals with each other. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's have a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call every week. Or maybe meet up face to face, have a beer or a wine, have a chat, or maybe over food. And as well as having a social event, just chat about what your goals are and where you're getting and help support each other by declaring what your goals are and what you're working on and what you're doing. Another way or another option is to do a group support where you join a weekly call and everyone declares what the progress is they're making. This is a lot less personal. And the third option here is to have a coach or a mentor that not just helps you with clarifying your goals and making sure that you're heading in the right direction, but also hold you accountable and provide you support in terms of making sure that you're achieving what you want to achieve. The opposite end of the spectrum to that is to go public. Just tell the world that you're going to do something or you're going to achieve something. And the crazy thing here is that even if the people you tell don't really care or they're not that bothered about what you're working on and they're not going to come back and say, hey, Janet or Mike, you said you were going to do this, but you haven't done it. Even if they don't follow up, what happens in our own mind is the fact that we've told lots of people we're going to do something, we end up holding ourselves accountable. We feel obliged to have to carry it through because we've told the world about it. I procrastinated over setting up a series of webinars in January. And in the end, I set up 3 webinars that I'm hosting in March, including this one. And what I did to get myself going was I basically set up the dates, I set them up on LinkedIn, and I posted it out to the world that I was hosting these webinars. Now, yes, I could have cancelled, I could have stopped, but I decided to carry on. And just the mere fact that I've set them up means that I'm more likely to carry it through and do it. It really does work, and it's a great way to make sure that you carry through on what you promise yourself that you'll do. So I hope you've enjoyed the introduction to the 6 key elements to success. A quick summary here. We've got 2 stages. We've got the planning and the execution. The planning we set over 10 weeks. We align our goals with what we want to achieve personally. And we make sure we've got the right goals. And then we take that 10-week cycle into the execution. We have someone or some way of holding us accountable. We break the tasks down as minuscule as we can, and we plan weekly. And then, and it's probably understated, we apply the right habits and the right tactics to make sure that every day and every week throughout the cycle, we stay focused. And today I've only touched on a few of the ways that you can use habits to stay focused on your daily activities. And I just briefly want to put up a couple of slides to give you options for how to go forward, because for me, I'm a great fan of valuable content in webinars, and I hope you found this of use to you today. But it's easy to go away from a webinar saying, I learned lots, but not actually do anything with it, not actually take the right action. So I've got 3 options on the screen here. One of them is that you can take what you've learned today, and I'm happy to send you some free templates, which I'll show shortly, and you can use that to make a success in 2022. I strongly recommend setting up a buddy system. If you have someone to hold you accountable, even saying to someone, would you like to be a buddy in a buddy system to hold me accountable, means that you have to start thinking about your goals and what your goals are and what you're going to do, and it starts that process. If you're a business owner, set it up with a like-minded business owner. You'll have something in common. You're more likely to support each other, bounce off ideas off each other, and help each other out. Alternatively, you can go it alone, or you can get a coach who not just helps you with the goal setting, but also the accountability and everything around what actions you're taking and are you taking the right actions. So I've got a couple of really quick special offers I'd like to show today. I'm more than happy for anyone that's attended, and this is exclusive for today's attendees, to provide a free 40-minute goal setting session to answer any questions, to review anything in terms of your goal setting, and to support you through that. I'm also happy to send out my free basic 10-week goal setting template that you can use to work through for setting your goals. And if you want to take it to the next level, if you take up my online course, then I'm including 3 hours of coaching and support throughout the 10 weeks to make sure that you stay focused and you get the goals set properly and that you hold yourself accountable and you work through them. I've not taken people's email addresses for today, so I won't be sending out this offer. But if it is of interest, please do email me at Darren and it's my entire name, darren@darrenhignett.com. Let me know if you're interested in just one of those or all 3 of those special offers, and I will come back to you with the right materials or with setting up the 40-minute session. So that just leaves me to say thank you so much for coming today. If you have any questions, please do put them into the box. We haven't got much time left, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you've got.